right, thank you, Connie. Well, I was very excited when I heard the topic for today is tools for the next 250, because I'm well aware of a tool that's worked exceptionally well in the last 130 years in the United States to stop the suffering that's happened in the workplace. And this tool can readily be applied to the things that are happening outside the workplace today. Let me walk through that a little bit with you. Let me take you back 130 years ago, 1896. Right here in Southbury, my great-grandfather was a mechanic at the paper mill at what's now South Dakota State Park. Okay? So back in those days, I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen an old mill, water-driven mill and so forth. There are all kinds of belts and pulleys turning around and so forth. That's what drives the equipment and so forth. So he's the mechanic. I know exactly what happened, but I'm envisioning maybe something jammed or something. So he went to free the jam and so forth. He was successful, and the equipment started moving, and his arm was crushed at the shoulder between the bells and the pulley. Something of that sort. And he died. Okay? Now, and that's been well known in my family, ever since it happened and so forth, passed down the generations. But you think of it, it's like, oh, well, is this just a horrible tragedy that happened to one person here? No, it wasn't. There were jobs at that time that 25% of the people working the job died in a given year. Particularly in the steel industry and things like that. So, the thing is, we didn't all just sit here and say, oh, well, that's just life, and let's move on there. Came up with techniques that really is a fairly simple technique. We call it incident investigation. It's like, understand why did this happen, and most importantly, what can you do to keep it from happening again? So, incident investigations go in and asking, well, why did this happen? But then you don't stop with the answer. You keep asking, why did this happen, until you get to the real root cause of it. Very rarely is the root cause of something just because so-and-so's a bad person. I mean, you look at the legal way of handling things, that's pretty much what it amounts to. Is go find who to blame, and then how you got hurt, which is, from an industrial safety point of view, is absolutely insane. So, anyway, in the case of what happened to my grandfather, what happened, the root cause of what happened to him is the energy of the mill was not separated from where he was working. So he was in a dangerous place. It's like you're working on electrical equipment and it's live. You haven't locked it out or anything like that. Okay, but there's techniques that have been developed over the years called lockout, tagout. You lock out the equipment, you tag it so somebody else doesn't turn it on, and then you turn it before you use it. And it works great. Just about nobody dies from those circumstances. I ended up working in the chemical industry my entire career, from 1980 to 2015. And, going from what was back then where lots of people were killed every year on the job to going through my entire career with handling some of the most dangerous things out there, and nobody died. Because whenever there was anything, there was even a minor incident, you investigate it, you take corrective action so it doesn't happen. Or anybody even gets hurt in these things nowadays. So, now let's go to where we are today and what's going on today. Now, we're all well aware there's a lot of things bad going on in the USA. A lot of people dying that really shouldn't be. The truth of what the U.S. is today, it's not a matter of an opinion poll, it's a matter of the data on what people are dying from in the U.S. The U.S. life expectancy is only at the 75th percentile, which means 25% of the countries of the earth live longer than we do. But the thing is, all of those countries, and the 75% of work, all of those countries who live longer than we are the countries we like to think of as our peers. Countries like the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Canada, Japan, Australia, etc. All of them live longer than we do. If you look at the same life expectancy as we do, that's up in countries like Algeria and Panama. Okay, that's really where we are. But why is that? Well, in the U.S., the leading cause of death is heart disease. Number 2 is cancer, which is pretty typical of a lot of people in the country. But what's number 3 in the U.S.? Number 3 in the U.S. is injuries. And injuries, leading cause of injury now is drugs. We have the number 2 cause of death is firearms. And the leading type of firearm death in the U.S. suicide. We have the world's highest firearm suicide rate. So you consider all of these things here. They drive our country, which has more wealth, more financial wealth than anyone else, to have a life expectancy much lower than our peers because of all these things. And these are all the sort of things that we're here talking about. Firearm deaths, regardless of whether it's self-inflicted or inflicted by others or accidental or whatever, those are the things that we're suffering from astoundingly in the U.S. So, let's take this technique and let's apply it to what's going on now. This is the tool for the next 250. It's worked incredibly well. So I've talked about how life is in the USA today. So let's talk about firearms alone. Okay, so we have the world's highest firearm suicide death rate. Our firearm homicide rate is worse than 90% of the countries on Earth. And both of those numbers are 1,000 times higher than they are in the safest country on Earth. So, why is that? Why is that? The basic reason is, I've done my informal poll there. Almost nobody in the U.S. knows the profile of the person who's most likely to kill you is yourself. Even though that's an absolute fact. If you look at the data that's collected on every death that happens in the U.S., there are more suicides than homicides. So, the person who's most likely to kill you is yourself. I mean, it's very... Yet that happens in the U.S. more so than anywhere else on Earth. Because we as Americans are so heavily misinformed about the truth. What we are bombarded with is that it's Hispanic immigrants are the profile of the person who's most likely to kill you. So you better go get a gun. They're going to show up at your farm in Bethlehem or your ranch out in Montana or whatever. So you better have a gun and be ready for it. And you've been conned into arming the person who's most likely to kill you. And that's why we have the world's highest firearm suicide rate. It is not trivial. But then, let's not stop there. So why are we misinformed of the danger of firearms? Why would we want to do that? Why would we want to kill ourselves, our brothers, our neighbors, everyone else? Well, you may be able to guess why. Because it makes a hell of a lot of money. And if you look at what our leadership is about in the U.S., and what we've really been taught is that it's all about wealth. We have money, everything is just money. There's lots of money made from firearm sales, lots of money made from weapon sales. There's lots of money made from studies that help support the misinformation. And there's a ton of money being made by spreading the misinformation through social media, news media, entertainment media, information technology, advertising, and so forth. And then finally, there's a heck of a lot of wealth being made by managing all of this wealth management. This is an integral part of the U.S. economy, what it is today. So, but then that's not the root cause. What's next? So does wealth, make us healthier? So it's a matter of winners and losers and so forth? Well, if you've heard me talk before, you know the answer is no. It doesn't make us healthier. Non-Hispanic whites are the wealthiest major ethnic group in the U.S. Hispanics are third. Who lives the longest? The Hispanics live the longest. What is the number one reason for that? The U.S. has the world's highest firearm suicide death rate. The firearm suicide death rate for non-Hispanic whites is twice that of blacks and 3.5 times that of Hispanics. Is the number one reason why white people don't live as long. Because they're the ones who are fed the bullshit and believe the bullshit. So, but then why is that? Why is too much financial wealth dead? Well, if you consider, if the game is all about making money, well, where are you going to get the money? You're going to get the money from the wealthiest. So all that money that you have there, that just makes you a lucrative target for misinformation. That's what literally we all are in the United States today. To people whose primary goal is accumulating wealth. So why aren't we aware of this? Well, we respond to what we've heard from kids who play the games like Monopoly and Life. The object is the most money. People watch TV, watch the show Survivor. What's the object? To win $1 million. What's the object of corporations? To make money, make the stock value go up. what's the objective of the political parties? You know, when they talk about the State of the Union, they'll say the State of the Union is great because the stock market is up. Who's better at making the stock market go up? And the truth is they say nothing about all the deaths that are occurring here, both to their supporters and to those that they're attacking.
Yeah.
And it's a nightmare. It's a true nightmare. So what is the root cause? So the root cause is this false promotion of the idea that financial wealth makes us safe and healthy. It's false. It endangers every single one of us, from Elon Musk down to the poorest beggar in the country. Everyone is endangered by this. You know, and that's the root cause of the horrific untimely deaths that occur in the U.S. today. So what do we do about it? For this part, I think you're right, because it's what you're doing is a big part of it. So to preserve our lives, we must be driven by our health, not our wealth. Hence, that is this reason for this sign. This is what this sign says. You know, whether we say Black Lives Matter, All Our Lives Matter, the pictures of every ethnic group, major ethnic group in the U.S., this is what drives us. You know, it's lives matter. It's not. We're not out here to make a buck. We're out here for our lives and the lives of our family. Okay, so that's number one. It's this, not making a buck. You know, number two, preserve our lives. The truth must be our light, not misinformation. Hopefully this is one of those things that's self-evident. You go to the doctor and you want somebody to tell you something that's not true. You want them to tell you something that's true. What do you think is going to make you live? Well, of course the truth is going to make you live. And finally, to preserve our lives, love and kindness must be our path, not punishment and violence. Love thy neighbor. You know, those things that we do. So that is the path forward. We are doing a lot of those things, and I think our biggest challenge is to get everyone to join us in this. I find I can have discussions about this topic with people across the political spectrum. You know, just about no one would dare be on the other side. When you say this is the side of the spectrum, I mean, the same thing's true with love thy neighbor. Who really wants to come up here and say, I'm not on that side, I'm against that? And the same thing is true with truth. Who wants to say, I'm not for the truth? You know, but yeah, there's a lot of people back there. But anyway, that's my offering for the tools for the next 250. I think you all are well aware of it. Our key challenge is, how do we get all the other 340 million people in the U.S. on board? But it's not only possible, it's very doable. Because nobody is on the other side. If you really start looking at it this way, nobody is on the other side. You just have to talk to people from that perspective. So anyway, thank you very much.
Tom.
I'll turn it over to Jack.
Tom. First, show your sign to the camera.
Oh yes. Is that on the screen? Okay.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
Very good.